For this example, we will learn a new way to solve quadratic equations, and that is by using the quadratic formula. By definition, a function is quadratic if the highest power on x is 2 and there are no other variables. You have to have the quadratic equation in a particular form before you can use your quadratic formula, and that is in descending order with 0 on one side. So you'll see in that particular form that you have your x squared term first, your x term in the middle, and your constant on the right, and then on the far right hand side you have equals 0. The a, b, and the c are all real number values, and you use the a, b, and c in the quadratic formula to be able to compute the values of x. Okay? To solve that quadratic equation, the quadratic formula tells you that x is going to equal negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This is a formula that you need to make sure to memorize. If you have problems that don't involve every single term, in other words, a squared term, an x term, and a constant term, such as this one below, 2x squared minus 5 equals 0, you can still use the quadratic formula, but it should be rewritten. So you have your 2x squared, and then notice there are no x terms, so put a 0x in its place, and then your minus 5. Your a's, b's, and c's are the constant values in front of your x squared term, your x term, and then your constant term. So in this case, your a would be 2, your b would be 0, and your c would be negative 5. So you do need to realize that even though sometimes we have an equation that's not quite in the proper form, as long as it's quadratic, it can be rewritten in that form. So for this first example, it wants me to solve the following quadratic equation specifically by using quadratic formula. The first thing we need to do is get it into the proper form. We see on this one we don't have 0 on one side, and so we need to take that 20 and we need to subtract it to the left hand side. So I would have 9x squared minus 3x, and then subtract the 20 over, so minus 20 equals 0. The next thing I'd like you to do is identify what a, b, and c are. The a is the constant term in front of your x squared term, so in this case it would be 9. The b is the constant term in front of x. Make sure to include its sign, so it would be negative 3. And then c is just the constant term. Once again, make sure to include its sign. Now, when you're learning a new formula, it's always a good idea to write the formula down every time you use it, and then this will help you memorize it. The quadratic formula says x equals negative b plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So now what we will do is we will take the a, b, and c values from our problem and substitute them in. In the formula, there's a negative. And then here we can see our b is also negative. So what I do is I use parentheses. I'll have the negative from the formula, and then I'll use a parentheses, and my value is negative 3. Plus and minus square root. Now the b is squared, and it's important to square the entire number. So use a parenthesis there and say negative 3 squared minus 4 times, our value of a was 9, and then c was negative 20. And then all of this is over 2 times 9, or 2 times a. So first, make sure that we have all the numbers plugged into our formula correctly. Next, I would go back and I would simplify my signs and multiply any kind of values together that needs to be multiplied. So we have a negative 3 times negative, or sorry, we have a negative times negative 3, which would be positive 3, and then plus and minus square root. We have a negative 3 squared, which would be 9. And then on the last group of numbers under the root, let me tell you what I do. First thing I do is I look at the signs to determine the sign that needs to be on my answer there. I have a negative with the 4, and I also have a negative with the 20. So I know that 2 negatives would end up giving me a positive. And then at that point, on my calculator, I would multiply 4 times 9 times 20. Okay, that result is 720. All right, and then divide 2 times 9 on the bottom is 18. All right, from here, I would do 3 plus and minus square root. I'd go ahead and add the 9 and the 720, so I'd have 729 over 18. Now at this point, I really need a calculator, so I'm going to go get my calculator. Okay, and we can see we need to know what the square root of 729 is. Well, I don't know what that is, so let's look on our calculator. Square root button is here, but it's in blue, so you're going to have to do second x squared, and then just type in 729, press enter, and it actually ends up being 27. Okay, so square root of 729 is 27. So going back, we can simplify, so it's 3 plus or minus 27. Make sure don't use a root there because you've already taken the root. All right, and then at this point we have the unique situation where we're going to have two answers because there's a plus and a minus, but what we need to do is we need to split them so that we can see actually what those two answers are going to be. So physically split them, and on one of them say 3 plus 27 over 18, and on the other one you're going to do 3 minus 27 over 18. Well, 3 plus 27 is 30. And then we know for sure, let's see here, what will go into both of those values. Looks like 6 would go into both of those values. So we could reduce by 6. 6 into 30 goes 5 times. Okay, and then 6 into 18 goes 3 times. So that reduces to 5/3. And then down on the second piece, we'd say 3 minus 27 is negative 24 over 18. And then on this one, same thing. It looks like 6 would go into both of those. So 6 into negative 24 goes negative 4 times. And then 6 into 18 goes 3 times. Okay, so we've got two answers out there. Online, the way that they'd want you to write your answer is they will provide you the x equals piece and then a box. And then you guys would need to plug in 5/3, comma, negative 4/3 as your solutions.